For question 1, it says describe your first impressions about Beatrice and Virgil. The first time that we see the name like Beatrice and Virgil, I thought they were like children, kind of, because they were talking and having this in-depth conversation about a pair, and I thought it was a play and the actors were children. Then later, whenever Henry the writer goes to see Henry the taxidermist, and he explains how Beatrice is a donkey and Virgil is the monkey, that also made sense to me, that it wasn't like, okay, it wasn't children, but it wasn't an adult, it was two animals that were interacting and having this conversation about a pair. And then for question 2, I thought that his killing of animals was a bit excessive. I mean, myself, I enjoy hunting. I hunt every year, so I have nothing against anyone who decides they want to hunt. But in this specific case, it was a bit excessive. Literally, he was killing anything that he saw, which has no purpose, and it doesn't ever say what he did with it. But so yeah, it was a bit excessive. And how could they connect? The only way I saw that they would connect would be that there's a talking deer in the one about Julian, and then there's a talking deer in the play that Henry the taxidermist wrote. That's the only connection that I kind of sort of saw. And the fact that there's animals, maybe, I don't know. And then for question 3, all the posters said that all monkeys were this way, they were ugly, untrustworthy, dishonest, so on and so forth. They said all these things, talking about them as a whole, which anytime you say anything about a group as a whole, it's usually not going to be true, for the simple fact that, yes, they all might be of the same descent, they might all be of the same species, but as an organized whole, especially in this case where they might be animals but they represent a lot of human qualities, there's no way you can talk about a whole and be correct in saying that every one of them are this specific way. It just doesn't happen. There's always going to be an oddball that's not like the rest of the group, or just in general, like, you're not going to make accusations about a whole group and they tend to be true, especially if they're saying that, like the posters did, that they're ugly and untrustworthy. And the sad thing is people would view these posters and say, well, if it's on that poster, it has to be true. It even says something about that in the book, how people read the posters and begin to think that it's true, and then they start to tell their friends and they start to repeat what they see on the posters. And then for question number 4, the only time that I felt that way was whenever we made the transition from elementary school to middle school, where I went to school. In elementary school, that is, and in a whole, but I had 9 people in my elementary school class, and those were the same 9 people that I had went from kindergarten all the way up until 6th grade, because we didn't have a middle school where I went to school. So when we made that transition from elementary school to, we had junior high, because it was only 7th and 8th grade, I went from having 9 people in my class, those 9 people I was close with, to having, I think, 300 or 400 kids in our junior high. That's all the schools, like all the different elementary schools fed together. So I didn't know anybody. And I was, left out of the loop, kind of, because, I mean, I had my 8 friends that I had went to school with my entire life, but other than that, I didn't know anybody else, so I was on my own. And the way that I kind of coped with that was I was involved in sports. I played football, basketball, baseball. But whenever we first got to junior high, it was football season. Clearly, it's the beginning of every school year. So I made friends with the people on the team. And I was friends with them. And after a couple of days of like talking to them at practice, then, you see them at school and you talk to them there. You become friends on the field and off the field. So that kind of carried over into school. And then I became friends with their friends. And then slowly, as the school year progressed, like I began to learn about like every person, become friends with everybody. And that was kind of how I got through it. And then it was kind of the same way whenever we went from junior high to high school. I knew a lot more people. Clearly, I had a lot more people in my class, so it wasn't as bad. But then whenever school started, it was football again. Made friends with the upperclassmen and then got to know everybody, and it was pretty much the same way.